Notice to the public. If you wish to address the council, please complete the public wishing to address the council form located at the table near the entrance into the building and give it to either the chairman or the council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Individuals addressing the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. Thank you. All cell phones, pagers, and electronic devices for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. I'd like to consider a motion to call a special meeting of the Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee to receive a briefing from the Houma Police Department Chief of Police, Dana Coleman, or his designee, and his designee is Chief of Detectives, Travis Terrio. We have it's moved by Mr. Babin, second by Mr. Guidry, Dirk Guidry. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so I call this meeting, this special emergency meeting of Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee meeting to order. I'll do an invocation and a pledge. Heavenly Father, thank you for the many, many gifts that we have, especially for the gift of the vaccination that will protect this community and help us to get back to normal. We thank you for everything, and we ask all things through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now I'll consider a motion to add on the agenda a briefing from Detective Coleman. Moved by Mr. Danny Babin, seconded by Mr. Darren Guidry. And I'll call for public comment on whether or not we should add this. Public once, public twice, public 3 times. Motion to close by Mr. Trosclair, second by Mr. Babin. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, all in favor of the add-on? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Chief, HPD Chief of Detective Travis Terrio. And we're going to hear what Chief of Detective has to say. We are not going to ask any questions because this is an investigation that is ongoing. And if somebody feels a real need to make a comment, let me know, but we probably need to limit that as well because, again, this is an ongoing investigation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Lieutenant Travis Terrio, Houma Police Department, Chief of Detectives, 500 Honduras Street. Okay. As everyone knows, on August 6th, tragically, there was a shooting in the car pickup line at the corner of Greenwich and Academy. The victim was approached by a male subject who we identified as Jamani Dotch, 17 years old, of residing within the city limits of Houma. Mr. Dotch was quickly identified by investigators. We would like to thank the Sheriff's Department and State Police and every other agency that worked with us to quickly secure the campus that day. But as a result of that, we obtained arrest warrants for Mr. Dotch for a weapons zone violation and also attempted first-degree murder, which we have outstanding at the present time. We've spoken with numerous advertising agencies in the area, media outlets, and we're trying to put the information out as much as we can across the area to try and get him in custody somehow. The victim at the present time, we were able to speak with her, and she's doing well. We would like to report that in stable condition. We've also spoken with the family and kept them up to date on everything that's going on. You will notice that there is an increased amount of security around St. Francis campus, at least into the foreseeable future, and until we get the suspect in custody. Have detectives working pretty much any day and night, as on an as-needed basis. Any information that we receive on Mr. Dotch, we're going to move on it and hopefully get him in custody safely. Like you said, there's not a whole lot that I can release on an open investigation. There are certain details that we can't really talk about right now, but that is what's going on as of now. You will see increased patrols around St. Francis School, and we will resolve this.
And for the sake of your investigation, we're not going to ask questions. We'll leave it at that, and we thank you for being here.
Okay. All right.
Motion adjourned by Mr. Darren Guidry, second by Mr. John Amity. All in favor? Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Notice to the public, if you wish to address the council, please complete the public wishing to address the council located on the table near the entrance to the building, and give it either to the chairman or the council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Individuals addressing the council should be respectful of others in the choice of words and actions. Thank you. All cell phones, pagers, and electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. The meeting will begin in about a minute. Okay, I call the meeting of the North Terrebonne Recreation District to order. Ask for the Pledge of Allegiance and an invocation by Mr. John Amity, please. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, in our hearts we plan our course, but we pray that you establish our steps. I pray, Lord, that we seek you for advice, and let us, Lord, not make decisions based upon what we know, but let us act based upon your wisdom. Please guide us, Lord, and we place this meeting in your hands. We place our hearts and our minds in your hands so that that you may direct us, Lord. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Keith, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Amade. Ms. Domain. Darren Guidry. Mr. Babin. Mr. Dirk Guidry. Mr. Navy. Mr. Harding. Mr. Michaud.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you, sir. Okay, item number one is public hearing to consider ordering and calling a special election to be held within the boundaries of the North Terrebonne Parish Recreation District to consider a tax proposition and authorize the purpose for the revenues derived from that tax, making application to the State Bond Commission in connection therein, and providing for other matters in connection therewith. Public once. Public twice. Public three times. Motion to close, Mr. Danny Babin. Second, Mr. John Amity. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Item two is the resolution, North Terrebonne Parish Recreation District, Parish of Terrebonne, State of Louisiana, ordering and calling a special election to be held within the boundaries of the district to consider a tax proposition and authorize the purpose of the revenues derived from that tax, making application to the State Bond Commission in connection therewith, and providing for other matters in connection therewith. And what I'd like to do is I would like to read the proposition because there was a last-minute change, a minor change in language. So I would like to read the proposition. And it says, shall the North Terrebonne Parish Recreation District, the district, State of Louisiana, be authorized to levy a special tax of 6.5 mils, the tax, on all property subject to taxation within the boundaries of the district, if said tax is approved by a majority of the voters in each of the existing recreation districts, Parish of Terrebonne Recreation District 1, 2, 3, 8, and 9, the existing districts, for the purpose of constructing, improving, maintaining, and operating recreational facilities, and the consideration of incorporating the existing districts into the newly created North Terrebonne Parish Recreation District, with $3,770,840 expected to be collected from the levy of the tax for an entire year for a period of 10 years, beginning with the year 2022 and ending with the year 2031, and only to be imposed if none of the existing districts impose ad valorem taxes within the district. Moved by Jessica Domingue, second by Mr. John Amedee. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Harding, thank you.
What was the original wording?
They did not. There were three. The thing that was changed on here was the very last item. It says, if none of the existing districts impose ad valorem taxes. That last statement before said if there was no recreational taxes levied in that area, but that would be a problem because we have a parish-wide recreation tax, and so we had to change that.
All right, thank you.
Good? Any other questions? Any other comments? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion adjourned, Ms. Danny Babin. Second, Ms. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all.
Notice to the public. If you wish to address the council, please complete the public wishing to address the council form located on a table near the entrance to the building and give it to either the chairman or the council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Individuals addressing the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. All cell phones, pagers, and electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee of August 9th, 2021 to order. I'll be doing the invocation followed by the Pledge of the Allegiance. Would you please stand? Lord, we ask for your supernatural wisdom as we make decisions tonight in this meeting. Help us to carefully consider the relevant information that's been gathered, and may those sharing information give us pertinent points so that we can all clearly understand. Help us to be unified in making the best possible decisions and to effectively carry them out, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Hampton, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Amedee?
Here.
Ms. Domingue?
Here.
Mr. Darren Guidry?
Here.
Mr. Babin?
Here.
Mr. Dirk Guidry? Here. Mr. Trosclair? Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding?
Here.
Mr. Michel? Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you, sir. Our first item is a presentation of the 2021 audit by Bourgeois and Bennett. Mr. Dan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Amedee. My name is Dan Teffer, and I live at 103 Maria Circle here in Houma. I'm the audit director for Bourgeois Bennett, and tonight we're here to present the audit report for the year ending December 31st, 2020. With me is Mr. Paul Payshon, who is another partner within Bourgeois Bennett, and an audit supervisor, Miss Amy Zarang. They both participated in the audit also. Before I get done, I just wanted to say at any time during this brief presentation, because I see y'all have a long agenda tonight, feel free to interrupt or ask questions or comments as you will. This is the audit that is due to the federal government. It's the audit of parish-wide, and it's due to, like I said, to the federal government. It has been sent off by us to the Federal Clearinghouse, which collects all local and state audit reports. As a result, and that's as a result of your federal grants, including the CARES Act this year. It's also due to the state by the state audit law, and that is put on the legislative auditor's website, and it's made available to the public there. And I think Ms. Malden puts the report on your website also to make it available by the public. And finally, it's also due by the Home Rule Charter for the parish. What's included in this report is all funds of the parish. In addition to that, they're all component units, those entities that you appoint board members to, or those entities that by nature exist based on your funding. And the two that come out the most on there would be Council on Aging and TARC, and also the Veterans Museum, the Veterans District, the Museum District, whatever it's called. But in the compliance report, which when we issue this report, we issue a large copy report and a small. The small copy, the small report is basically the single audit reports. This contains two reports, one that is on parish-wide, and it's for compliance with state and local laws and federal laws, regulations, and contracts. We had no findings on those areas with regards to question cost or no findings as far as internal control goes. The other section pertains to, and this is in a separate report in this book, compliance with federal grants. Some of the grants we looked at this year were the transit grant, the CARES Act, which I'm going to tell you is $29 million, along with the, I'm sorry, that's $20 million, not 29. Along with the mitigation grants, that hazard, flood mitigation and hazard mitigation, those are significant grants. I'm pleased to say we had no compliance findings in these programs. And furthermore, I know during the year we looked at an audit by CDBG, which had no compliance findings. And they do a much more detailed report than what our audit encompasses. In total, we looked at approximately 65% of your federal funds that came into the parish. Primarily, the total was almost 45 million, and 20 million or so of that was the CARES Act, of which I believe 14 million went to the hospital, and about 6.5 million of that funding stayed within the parish. And I'm going to come back to this in a little bit, but of the 6.5 million, I want to say about 4.7 million was within the public safety area, the public safety fund, and some in I think juvenile detention. Now, overall, let's see here. the overall financial picture for the parish looks good. The general fund increased fund balance by over $1 million during the year. The public safety fund increased their fund balance by approximately $785,000, bringing that fund up to $3.5 million. And the, let's see here. The Capital Projects Fund, which has the largest amount of funding in it because they had bond issuances during the year, some refunding of bonds during the year. They had $38 million, but the capital projects, I want to point out, is designated by project across the board. Now, getting back to the CARES Act, as I said, public safety received $4.6 million of that. That's approximately that's good for a little over 1 year of the transfer, as you know, from the utility fund to the general fund to the public safety fund. So that helped that's a one-time shot of money that came into that fund this year. And it also allowed that fund to, as I said, build up some fund balance. So where they got approximately a year's worth of funding on their own, meaning if you chose, you could skip a year of funding from the utility fund. The utility fund ended the year with approximately, I want to say 3.435 million of unrestricted fund balance. That's liquid assets. You look at their fund balance, and obviously it's more than that, but they got the plant, they got the plant and all the utility lines in there. But as far as liquid assets goes, the unrestricted fund balance in the utility is roughly 3.5, or another 1 year's worth of transfers to the police and fire. And then the general fund, as I said, had approximately $1 million added to their surplus or fund balance. That money came up to approximately $8 million at the end of the year. So, you know, your fund balances look good that are funding the police and the fire, which is obviously a long-term problem because there's not really a dedicated source of permanent, consistent, reliable financing in that department. There are taxes, but the taxes do not cover the full operations of the police and fire. What happens is it is supplemented either through the general fund or by way of the utility fund using the pilot program. That's why I kept going back to the utility fund. But it looks like to me, overall, the immediate future here, we look like we're pretty good for the next 4 or 5 years. Now that's provided there are no more individual shots of funding coming through, which I know there is in the form of the American Rescue Plan, which is coming up in 2021. None of that funding is accounted for in our report because it's a transaction that occurred this year, and that funding is good through 2024. So each year you can do a separate, but again, that's single year shots of money, nothing consistent such as a tax would be or fees increased. That pretty much wraps up what I wanted to say tonight. I did go over individual funds with administration and the council chair, vice chair, and chair of the Finance and Budget Committee. I think that was 2 weeks ago. And I offer this if anyone has any questions, and I know some of you guys have taken advantage of this in the past. I'm here in Houma. I'll be happy to sit down with you and discuss anything in the audit or in the finances that you would care to discuss, as I've done in the past. With any questions or?
Mr. Trosclair has light.
Yes, thank you, Dan. I know it's pretty brief. When you stated that the utilities fund had a fund balance of liquid assets of $3.5 million, which would cover the police and fire department for this year.
Yes.
Okay, so are you also saying that that's all they have? They don't have anything for the LEPA fund?
No. That's surplus. That's after LEPA.
Okay.
And LEPA, no, the utility fund will run they'll get revenues of
Right.
35 to 38 million a year. However, there's expenses offsetting that. This is the 8 million historically is what's left over at the end, or 3 million is what was left over as of December 31st.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No. LEPA is still there. It's not going anywhere.
Is that fun?
Yes.
Mr. Babin?
Yeah, and Dan, as you stated, this 3.4 million, that's before the American
Rescue plan.
Rescue plan. I was drawing a blank on it, so thank you, John.
Yes, sir. That's
Before.
before
This is-
the rescue plan.
This is as of
This is as
December
of
31st, correct?
2020,
Right.
yes.
Okay, I mean, some of these numbers in comparison to the past are different, but if you're saying, and Candace is saying that we're in a good financial position, I'm happy with that. But I also heard you say that there's enough money for another year or 2 years, so we need to start thinking out the box a little bit, because we may not have one-time monies coming in.
Well, that's why it's one-time money.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Who knows? You know, as I said during the year, I think you got like 20 million from the CARES Act. Right now, we haven't. And this is before December.
Right.
Now, the parish is suffering more than we had before December,
Right.
in my opinion.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
so who knows what's coming down?
No, and that's the thing, because, and as you said, we need to find some long-term solution to police and fire.
Yes.
Funding,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, I've had talks about that in the past with
Right.
a lot of folks. I think, you know, and what I've said was take a little bit here, a little bit there. You know, you're not going to go in and what we're talking about is police and fire that primarily serve the urban services district.
Correct.
And can that district support a tax high enough to pay for that? That's doubling that would be probably doubling the tax.
And then also, the sanitation fund seems to be increasing. That only can be used in.
That's restricted money
Restricted,
by
correct.
parish charter to the sanitation department. Yes, the sanitation fund has primarily two sources. User charges, which appears every month on your water bill, and also they have a tax, which you assess each annually. During the year, I think they had like, I don't know, $700,000, $800,000 of profit that went in, that was above all of the expenses. Now, the operations of the sanitation department, they're in excess of $3 million of income. However, they have transfers. The sanitation department supports the animal shelter in the general fund to the tune of about $1.4 million a year. And also, they support activities in the sewage fund, which could be as much as $1.8 million a year. So you're looking at, you know, $3.1, $3.2 million of transfers that are fixed in that fund.
Gotcha, okay, thank you,
And
Dan.
I'm not suggesting you consider reducing that tax or anything, because you got those
I'm not
hard fixed transfers out there.
No, I'm not advocating that, but it could be used to pay off bond debt if you chose to do that.
In the sanitation fund.
Correct, so
And
that's what I
only in the
mean, that's what I
sanitation
mean,
fund,
only in the
yes.
sanitation fund. And I know Ms. Malden is definitely on top of all of that, so thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah.
Any more questions? Seeing no more, Mr. Dan, thank you and your staff for the work that you do. We appreciate the report. And to Ms. Malden and her staff, we just want to commend you guys on no findings. I mean, great job.
Yes, I wanted to say Ms. Malden does a great job. Her entire department does a job. We do not prepare these reports ourselves. They first come from Ms. Malden and her staff, and we appreciate the job that we do. One thing I would say, which I didn't mention earlier, is in the sewage fund, there was a new GASB that went into play. In addition to any new bonds you issued, this new GASB required a $70 million liability to be put on the books for the asset retirement of the North and South treatment plants. Now, nobody's ever going to knock on the door and say, give me the $70 million. That's to be amortized over the life of the existing plants. So that's a long-term liability that shows up primarily because it's been requested by the bond rating services, just like you got liabilities for employee retirement liabilities, and you have liabilities on your books for group health insurance to retirees. Between those liabilities, you're looking at several $100,000 of liabilities on the parish's books.
That weren't there before. You didn't see that in the report.
6 years ago,
before.
it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right.
So just one more thing that the bonding companies are wanting to look at before they give us the good interest rates on the bonds. Would that be?
Give you, it would either help or hinder those interest rates.
Right.
At least you're telling them. But you guys, I can tell you, y'all belong to the most well-funded retirement plan in the state. You don't. In fact, most plans are underwater, meaning if they wanted to liquidate the plan today, they would owe money. The plan that most of the parish is in, the PERS, the Parochial Employees Retirement System, that plan has an asset, meaning they could, according to the actuaries, they could pay off all the parochial employees within the state and return money to the participants, you guys. So that's a plus there.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 2, resolution concurring with the recommendation of the parish administration to award bid 21-WHSC-23, purchase of new unused electrical inventory products 2021 12-month requirements contract to the lowest qualified bidders, Arkansas Electric, Buccaneer Services, Stewart C. Irby Company, Utility and Industrial Supply, Westco Distribution, Inc., Cresco Utility Supply, Roulette Utility Supply, and Techline Incorporated.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Danny Babin, second Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, resolution concurring with the recommendations of the parish administration to award the proposal for meter reading handheld devices and management software to United Systems and Software, Inc. Moved by Mr. Carl Harding, second by Mr. Dirk Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, resolution concurring with the recommendation of the parish administration to award bid 21-WHSC-33, purchase of new unused right-angle gear drives for the warehouse inventory to the lowest qualified bidder, Associated Pump and Supply, LLC. Moved by Mr. Steve Trosclair, second by Mr. Gerald Michel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, resolution concurring with the recommendation of the parish administration to award bid number 18-SP-67, rebid surplus sale of adjudicated property at 509 Westview Drive to Tremaine White. Moved by Mr. Gerald Michel. Second, Mr. Steve Trosclair. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, resolution concurring with the recommendation of the parish administration to award bid number 20-SP-58, rebid surplus sale of adjudicated property at 418 Knockhand Street to Doris Allen. Moved by Mr. Carl Harding, second by Mr. Dirk Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, resolution concurring with the recommendation of the parish administration to award bid number 20-SP-63 rebid surplus sale of adjudicated property at 414 Louise Street to Earl Hartman. Move Mr. John Navy, second Mr. Gerald Michel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, resolution authorizing Parish President Gordon E. Dove to execute a cooperative agreement with LSU Ag Center Cooperative Extension Service of Terrebonne Parish to provide cooperative extension services for parish residents.
Move.
Move Mr. Danny Babin, second Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, resolution declaring vehicles, computers, and miscellaneous equipment from various departments, divisions having a value of less than $5,000 as surplus and authorizing said items to be disposed of by any legally approved methods.
Move.
Move Mr. Darren Guidry, second Mr. Steve Trosclair. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, present resolution for discussion and approval to support the dedication of $6 million of the remaining $13,733,161 in American Rescue Plan Act funding to repair roads and road panels in the parish if federal guidelines allow. Moved by Mr. Dirk Guidry.
Second.
Second, Mr. Darren Guidry. For discussion, Mr. Darren Guidry.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is a continuation, of course, of our discussions about the need for roads in Terrebonne Parish. And, some of the numbers, of course, we have $40 million it will take to repair the roads, parish roads that need to be repaired. We currently budget $3.2 million, which is $1.2 million plus $2 million in the overlay we did for the asphalt. So at $3.2 million, it would take a long time to reach the $40 million. And of course, I spoke with Mr. Dove. I mentioned 2 weeks ago he had committed to $5 to $6 million of the American Recovery Rescue Plan Act dollars to be used towards roads if we could figure out a way to fund that. I know Ms. Malden is working on that. Ms. Malden, I don't know if you want to give an update on the funding of.
Yes, sir, and I do think after I speak, Mr. Black has something regarding the roads and stuff too. But we presented the American Rescue Plan budget amendment to you guys 2 weeks ago, and it was approved. I mentioned there that we're looking at the lost revenue. There might be some more lost revenue we can add. That part of it right now, as far as I know, is the only part that can be used for roads, nothing else. I'm also waiting. We have to do an original report to the federal government by August 31st, and then after that it's quarterly reports. So I have several webinars this week and next week scheduled to determine what needs to be done for the reporting purposes, what are they going to be asking for, so that way we know how to work into this. So it's still a work in progress. It's a lot of money to spend. I want to make sure we have all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted, because I don't want to have to give any back. So that's the plan.
Thank you, Ms. Malden.
And I'd like
Mr.
to,
Guidry, you have any
on
more?
my light, recognize Mr. Black. If you have an update to share.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dove regrets not being here tonight, but he had other obligations. Mr. Dove and his administration has supported funds for road repairs, asphalt overlays, repairing of sidewalks and curbing. This has always been a priority for the administration, and his administration, along with his council, have recently moved forward with the following. The Nello Street overlay and drainage improvements, $550,000. The Hollywood Road 3-lane bridge at Southdown Mandalay, $1.9 million. Industrial Road box culverts at $1,185,000. Asphalt overlay and repairs parish-wide, $1.5 million. Road striping for $375,000. The Ashland Road extension for $1.3 million. The Polk Street Bridge, $1.15 million. Annual road maintenance and repairs, 4 crews, $1.4 million. Bridge remediation projects, $673,443,000. Emergency culvert repairs on Shrimpers Row, $325,000. Emergency repairs of the Buquet Bridge, $355,000. Road repairs through the sewage division, $138,400,000. Road repairs through the drainage division, $110,550,000. The Island Road rock jetty and water control structure. And here's some projects where the parish and the state have shared some of these costs. The overlay of Highway 24, Main and Park, approximately, I don't have a figure for that. The overlay of Highway 311, approximately $3.1 million. The Country Estates Bridge replacement, $1.1 million. The Hanson Canal Bridge replacement, $1.5 million. The Carroll Street Bridge replacement, approximately $1.3 million. The Savan Road Bridge over Hanson Canal replacement, $1.5 million. The Company Canal Bridge replacement, the Schriever Overpass Road repairs, and the Montague overlay to Pointe-aux-Chenes that's coming up for bid. That's all I have for Mr. Dove, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Would you like to finish out?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and to finish out, with the $3.2 million and the $6 million, that will give us close to $10 million, which could knock out about 25% of the needs that we have. So it's very important we do that. I am preparing an email that I can send to the congressional delegation if needed. I'm talking with Ms. Molden, but this resolution will go hand in hand with that. If I have to, I'll have that resolution to send to them to let them know that this is not me, the council is supportive of dedicating this money. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Babin.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, just a couple of thoughts, okay? This is in addition to not replacing any money that we've already dedicated. So as Darren said, that comes to $9.2 million, okay? What is the possibility of this money, the projects being put out on bid, for us to get the best bang for our buck in the shortest period of time? Because I'm sure we already have a priority, we've already paid for a priority list on asphalt. So we have a priority list. This is more money that can go into it, so you just get more done on the list. I'm sure Mr. Rome has a priority list on concrete roads in this parish that need to be done. So
I don't know that I maybe understood the question, and Mr. Rome might be the one that can answer it better. The one thing that we have to be careful, if we use any of this money, we have to make sure we're following the procurement.
Oh, correct.
So if it's stuff that's already in place, we may not be able to put this funding towards it if it hasn't followed the federal procurement, because there are a little bit different rules there between state and federal. So, anytime we go out for bid for anything, we have to have the money budgeted before we can do that. So we have to make sure that we can use this money for this before we can even go out for bid. I'm sure what we would do is we would get with Mr. Roman, we'd have a list of, okay, out of this $6 million, if that's what we come up with, this is what we want to do, and hopefully we can go out and do all the bids at one time to get the best price for us.
Yeah,
Did that answer?
It does. And I just want to make sure that the money is here right now. And look, with COVID, a lot of companies are working behind schedule, all right? Look, Norris and Boudreaux does a great job for us. I think he had 4 people with COVID come down over the weekend, all right? So I'm just trying to say, Terrebonne Parish as a whole, I think would be better served if we could put it out on bid and maybe 2 or 3 different companies were doing it all at one time. It spreads the money around to other companies, but it also gets us our roads fixed a lot quicker. That's all I'm asking. If it does not fit the guidelines, naturally we cannot do it, okay? I just want us to make sure, and again, the priority list, we've already paid to have a priority list on asphalt, so we know that if this money can be applied to asphalt, that we just we get more bang for our buck on that particular list. So, yeah, no, you've answered it. I just want to make sure that that's where this money is going, okay, and that we can best utilize it in the quickest manner.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Babin. Mr. Darren Guidry?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And one last thing, the $9.2 million, this would be if we're able to get the full $6 million doesn't include any of the state transportation trust funds money. So that would be in addition to, plus other revenues that we have. So I think we could do some real good damage if we're able to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Mr. Carl Harding.
Ms. Malden, can I ask a question? The $13 million we're talking about, now that comes up in a combination of the money that we get this year and the money we have next year.
$9 million.
So now we're actually counting eggs before they hatch, or we can actually consider this right now. So if we use the $6 million, it seems to be a logical question to me.
That's a very good point, Mr. Harding. So we did the budget amendment for $22 million last week, and that did cover the full $22 million, which did not include the $6 million here. So what we would probably need to do is maybe back off on some of those things to be able to put the $6 million in. One question that I do have that I'm going to try to follow up on is, the only way I think this could currently be done is if we do have lost revenue comparing 2020 to 2021. Can I wait until 2022 and I get that additional funding to use this money for that revenue loss? I don't know that part yet. That's part of what I have to wait and see how we have to actually report things. So it's a good question.
Okay.
Was not an answer.
Yeah, well, actually, just only something to put out there and to have a consideration. I know we have to have the money beforehand to really put it out on bid, or just go out and just say we're going to do this. The other idea that I'm thinking about, because the people in Washington seem to be debating on infrastructure. Everybody got it except for me. But what I'm saying here is that that's a possibility that we should have some revenue coming from within our state, and which may come to us also. Not saying that we could just hope on that, because we already have this $13 million that we can actually take the $6 million.
Right. So there is the infrastructure from the Biden administration. There is some money that I believe the state has allocated from their lost revenue that would go for infrastructure and roads. Mr. Rome may have an answer for that more than I would. That hopefully we'll get some that can go towards some of these projects as well. And I know that there was talk about the state increasing the parish transportation fund money. Again, all of that's kind of
in the air.
What if? But those are some things that we can look out for in the future.
And I'm pretty sure Mr. Roman can attest to this, and I'm pretty sure most of us could. If we have a sewage problem, if we have a sewage problem, that sewage is below the road.
Correct. So that is, and that's been brought up to me a couple times the past couple of weeks, and that is part of why I want to see how things are reported, to see what detail is needed to be included as part of the project to determine where does it fall. Does it fall as a sewage project, or does it fall as a road project? So that's where I have to kind of get some more detail to see. From what I understand, I think we could justify it because the reason that the roads are bad is the sewage. But that would be something that Mr. Rome would have to come up with some kind of verbiage for me.
Yeah, me and Mr. Rome discussed that some time back, and actually me and Mr. Guidry, Darren Guidry, had a conversation in reference to that. And that seems to be part of our problem within the parish. Not only just the parish roads, we have state roads that seem to have deterioration in the subsurface.
It's all about how we word things, and I want to see how they're going to read it before I determine how we word things.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Harding and Ms. Malden. Basically, we have to be able to recognize that loss in order to gain more usage of the money that they gave us. So it's not adding any more money to what they've given us. They've given us the $44 million.
Right.
We have to go in that $44 million and see if we can identify some more loss in order to be able to recognize and use that. And I just want to say, like Mr. Guidry, Darren Guidry said, Mr. Dove has committed to, if we can recognize that additional funding, to go ahead and add it into the roads, because like was said by Mr. Guidry, we had $40 million worth of repairs, and that's not really unusual. Go look at New Orleans. It's just that it's going to take a lot of time, so anything that we can throw at it now, the parish, as Mr. Mort was reading out the projects, has been constantly, you're going to always work on roads. So this would be a boost to that area of what we do in our maintenance of the parish, but it's not identified money yet. We just want the public to understand that we're shooting towards getting their roads. We've been working on their drainage a long time, and we want to get back to their roads and get their streets a little bit more drivable to help them with their core maintenance, because some of the roads could definitely use it. Mr. Rome, was there something you wanted to add, sir? Thank you, Ms. Malden, because that's a task I wouldn't want. I with my little job that I do, I have to dig and try to find money creatively. And you got a monumental task, but yes, sir, Mr. Rome.
David Rome, Public Works Director, 206 Government Street. I just want to add to what Ms. Malden said, and that is correct. The state is looking at additional funding, taking their share of this ACT money and implementing it in either the Transportation Trust Fund, which is probably not likely. However, there is the off-system bridge program, and Mr. Harding alluded to the infrastructure bill that the Biden administration is working on. All indications point that's how that money is going to get funneled to us. So right now we average anywhere between $400,000 and $800,000 a year for bridge replacements, which a typical bridge is over $1 million at this point. We have to wait 2 years in order to replace a bridge on that program, and that program has taken 9 years for the Carroll Street Bridge, so it's not something that we can reliably wait on. But I think that is the channels that money is going to come to us on the federal and the state levels, not exactly a check.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. Mr. Darren Guidry?
Yeah, and just a point of clarification of anybody watching, this is parish roads. These are neighborhood streets, road panels in front of your house. These aren't state highways. The state is supposed to maintain state highways. That is a state function. We're not even allowed to maintain them. So just to as a point of clarification, because I got a phone call today about Bayou Black Drive being in bad shape and others, but those are state highways. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Seeing no more lights, item 11, consider approving the co-sponsorship. I'm sorry.
We got to vote, I think.
No, we didn't. It was just presenting a discussion. You want to present a resolution?
No, present the resolution. We have a motion. We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution.
Okay. So with that, then
The resolution is in your packet.
we'll have the vote on the resolution.
Now, therefore, is pretty much
All right.
I just didn't have one in mind. Okay.
So we're just passing a resolution to support the dedication of the dollars. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, consider approving the co-sponsorship request for the Mama's Walker event on Saturday, September 25th, 2021, from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. at 8033 Main Street.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Domingue, second by Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
I have one light, Ms. Domingue.
Yeah, and I'm going to address this to Ms. Malden. If these events are canceled for some reason because of the increase in COVID, what happens to the co-sponsorship? Do those people pay that back, or do they not get it until the event actually happens?
That's a good question. So most of the time, the co-sponsorships are a lot of in-kind services. I forget if it's for insurance or anything, but they don't get it until the event happens. If for some reason the event doesn't happen and we postpone it, we could just carry that over. I think that's what we did in 2020 when some of that started. So if it's scheduled and it's canceled and they reschedule it for later, the co-sponsorship could still be put into place there.
Okay.
But usually the cost of it doesn't occur until either right at the time of the event or even after.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Darren Guidry?
But if there is a hard cost, let's say, for instance, they go for the insurance portion, and the insurance is paid up and the event can't occur, we don't ask them to pay us back for that, right?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. No, we would actually see if the insurance company would let it, depending on if they have it. Sometimes they'll do it for a year. So sometimes the insurance will already be in place. So we'll work to see if we can get it to be extended, but we won't ask them to pay us back.
Thank you.
Mr. Guidry, thank you. Mr. Trosclair?
Yes, Candace, I want to reaffirm, we still not doing monetary co-sponsorship, right?
I believe we do cover insurance.
Right, in-kind services,
Yes.
but
so
no cash
no,
checks.
sir. No,
Okay.
sir. We don't give them cash. No, sir.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no more lights, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, consider approving the co-sponsorship request for the Affiliate Appreciation event being held on Friday, September 9th, 2021, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Municipal Auditorium. Moved by Mr. Dirk Guidry. Second, Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, consider approving the co-sponsorship request for the September to Remember Festival on Saturday, September 4th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 7856 West Main Street, Houma, Louisiana.
Second.
Move Ms. Jessica Domingue. Second, Mr. Darren Guidry. Mr. Carl Harding.
Did you say Saturday the 24th? I'm looking at Saturday the 4th here.
Saturday, September 4th.
4th? Okay.
Yes, sir. Seeing no more discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, introduce an ordinance to amend the 2021 adopted operating budget, 5-year capital outlay budget, and budgeted positions of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. Road Lighting District Number 10, $5,000. Houma Downtown Marina, $5,842. Houma Downtown Marina, $2,800. Le Petit Facility Improvements, $10,000. Engineering, $0. Add 1 engineering training grade 205. Sanitation, new department, $514,360. Civic Center sidewalks, $211,701. East Houma East Park walking trails, $10,000, and call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Move Mr. Darren Guidry, second by Mr. Danny Babin. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion adjourned.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Darren Guidry. Second, Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Notice in the public, if you wish to address the council, please complete the public wish to address the council form located on the table near the entrance into the building. and give it to either the chairman or the council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Individuals addressing the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. All cell phone, pagers, and electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. I'd like to call the Public Services Committee meeting of August 9th, 2021 to order, and we'll have an invocation and a pledge by Mr. Carly Harding. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, it is with understanding that the first covenant, if it would have been great, oh God, that it would have been no need for the second. But then, as I stand here and realize that you sent your darling Son Jesus to hang, to bleed, and to die on Calvary's cross, that all may have the right to the tree of life. But having an understanding as we go through our lives, oh God, with the plagues and virus and all the turmoil that we have within our world, we asked you in your darling Son Jesus' name that to look after us and to have mercy not only just for our souls, but our families, everything in Terrebonne Parish. We're asked to take care of the crime, the drugs, the lack of housing, and everything that is negative within this parish. Asking that you put a unified parish together so that we can have full understanding to this world, oh God, that we must have care and compassion one for another. The love that goes from one heart to another heart, oh God, and brotherly love. And this we ask that we have the privilege of having the blessing of, oh God, in your darling Son Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Mr. Key, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Amadei? Here. Ms. Domingue? Here. Mr. Darren Guidry? Here. Mr. Babin? Here. Mr. Dirk Guidry? Here. Mr. Trosclair? Here. Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding? Here. Mr. Michel? Here. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Item 1, discussion and update of the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness relative to COVID-19 and any other pertinent public information. Mr. Hughes?
Hello? All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. At the present time, I'm going to push my presentation on the side. I do have some representatives from Terrebonne General Health Systems to give us a little update on what's happening through the hospital system. And they have had a long day to begin with, so we're going to let them go first, and then I'll go after them, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sure is, Mr. Hughes.
Okay, so today we have Ms. Phyllis Peoples, who's the CEO of Terrebonne General Hospital System, Dr. Ben Adams, and Dr. McKee, who's on the COVID medical team for the hospital. So, Ms. Peoples?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I know many of you, so it's nice to see you. We just wanted to give an opportunity to give you an update on what's going on at the hospital. I know you kind of get some information and you're not sure what happens in the world of medicine, but I have to tell you it looks totally different than what you're seeing here tonight. The hospital is full of COVID patients. This is like no other process we've seen before. We are, and I do have Dr. Ben Adams and Dr. Nicole Mckee, and we had several other physicians who would like to come, but they're over there working, and they're coming on their own time. And they can kind of give you a little bit of a scenario or the pictures that we see taking care of people. In the first, we call it the first wave, I know it's fourth wave, but when we first had COVID, it was COVID-19. People were sick, but it seemed to attack a little bit more of the elderly, a little bit more of people who had some health conditions. What's different, and Dr. Adams and Dr. McKee will kind of allude a little more to that, is that this one's attacking very young people. We are seeing it in children. We are seeing it in that population anywhere from the 20s to 50s. They are on ventilators. They are struggling. Unfortunately, they are passing away. It is age groups that we are seeing that right now we have in our ICU 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and they're not doing well at all. We've had an 8-year-old whose oxygen saturation is what we look at, that we had to transfer out. And we have several. Some of the youngest people that have tested positive as of late is an 11-week-old. I can go through, I ask every day, how old is our youngest that we have tested that has COVID? And those numbers are 3 years, 4 months, 8 months, 20 months. 8 months, 16 months, 7 weeks, 11 weeks. So if you think it won't happen, it does, and we're seeing it. So what we kind of wanted to go through, and we'll be glad to answer any questions, and this isn't for you to, we're not doing a dramatic, that's not our way. We're in medicine. We take care of people. But since August 1st, just to give you an idea, because everything was at about, I know Mr. Earl reports, we were at a low positivity rate of about 4%. We are now well over 30-something%. We went from doing about 350 tests a week on people who were just getting tested for COVID to 964 we did this last week. And of those 964, which is insurmountable with the amount of staff and things that you need, we had a positivity rate well over 33%. Now, we don't have any place to put people anymore in the hospital. I'll be quite candid. Our ICU is full. Over the weekend, we have 28 beds in our ER. Over 20 were filled with just COVID patients. That means I have less than 8 beds to use if there is a trauma or an accident or a cath or a heart thing that comes into our facility. We are getting nervous and scared. We are not the only facility. This is throughout the entire state. Every Tuesday I'm on calls with the governor, with all the CEOs throughout the state to try and share resources and hear people's plight. But the other part that this is changing that's different is our staff are getting sick. And because your staff are getting sick, they have to be out at least a minimum of 10 days. I have close to 40 people right now out who have a clinical background or in some way take care of a patient that is not there to take care of a patient. So I just, I could go on and on because this is our passion, but I have 2 other people and we'll be glad to answer questions after. But I felt real strongly that you need to understand what we're seeing, and we are doing an amazing job. We've got amazing people, amazing staff, but it's getting very difficult with the amount of people that we have that are in there. If you can promote a vaccination, a mask, or anything that will prevent something in some kind of way, you're advocating for the best outcome possible. It won't make you not get COVID. And that's where people don't understand, and Dr. Adams very versed in that. It will help where you don't have to come in the hospital. And that's really the resources that we're trying to protect. So I won't take up all your time because I could speak forever. Y'all know me. I've been in this role close to 20 years as CEO, 19. We haven't seen anything like this before. Nobody has, as I talk to my colleagues in the state. It's different than the first time. But Dr. Adams' background, just so you know, he's our medical director of anesthesia and surgical services. He also serves on our board. When you can't breathe, that's the guy you call. And he has seen a lot, and he's gotten called a lot. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Adams to talk for a little bit. And again, we don't want to take up all your time, so if we keep talking and you need us to be quiet, just kind of give us the sign. But we're living it, and so we just wanted to share those details with you. Dr. Adams?
All right. Thank you guys for having us. I'm Dr. Ben Adams. I'm a board-certified cardiothoracic anesthesiologist, and as Phyllis said, I serve on the board at the hospital in multiple leadership roles throughout the surgical department and the hospital as well. I'll probably reiterate a few of the things that she said while she was here. This is just some data from today. The positivity rate is, as she suggested, 900 some odd tests this week. We've had over 300 of those being positive. But in the hospital, we currently have in our ICU that is full, 12 of those are COVID patients, 7 of which are on the ventilator. Historically, we saw a much older patient population for various reasons. Those were individuals that had a weaker immune system. They carried more comorbidities and were much more likely to present to the hospital being ill with the early COVID that we saw. We'll call that one the Alpha variant. With what we're seeing today with the Delta variant, it's essentially going to not care what your age is or what your comorbidities are. We've had healthy individuals that have came to the hospital, wound up in critical care, and died. And by healthy, I mean 30-year-old people, 40-year-old people that we're seeing. Of the patients that are in critical care now, 3 of them are in their 30s, 2 are in their 40s, 1 in the 50s. I have 5 that are in the 60s and 1 75-year-old. So the distribution is about, I think it's about 50 to 57 years old, somewhere in that ballpark for what our mean age is right now. None of the individuals that are in our critical care unit with COVID right now have been vaccinated. I would say of all the admissions that we see, 90% of those admissions have not been vaccinated, about 10% have. those 10%, when they come into the hospital, those individuals go home much sooner than those that had not been vaccinated. And I speak from a small snapshot, right? I'm the guy that you call when the patients are so ill that they're not breathing well, they need to be intubated, placed on a ventilator, need big lines put in their neck, arterial access, whatever the case may be. Our critical care doctors, our pulmonologists, our hospital medicine services, our emergency department, our nurses, our respiratory therapists, those guys live in it 24/7. I'm in it when I'm called to be in it. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those guys here tonight to speak because guess what they're doing? They're in the hospital. They're slammed. They're doing everything they can to take care of the patients that we have there. And the impacts of COVID just don't reach out to the people that have COVID. It's the individuals that need to have other things done at the hospital. You have a heart attack, you have a stroke, you're in a car accident, you need to come into the hospital. Guess what? You can hang out in the emergency department until we can get a place for you. How do we get a place for you? Either we have people that get better and get discharged from the hospital, or we have people that get worse and they die. And that's how the beds open up right now. And that's a sad state to be in. It's a tough thing to see. It wears on the staff. I'm talking everybody from the physicians all the way down to the people that work in the cafeteria. We're tired. Everybody's beat down to some extent. Our floor patients that we see, typically if you come into the hospital with low oxygen saturations, there's a number of medications that we can utilize to try to improve your outcomes in the hospital, none of which are perfect. The data on some of those medications is marginal at best. Some are better than others. With that being said, we utilize the things that we think are going to help those individuals to survive their hospital stay and not get worse and end up in our critical care unit. One of the things that we don't talk about much is our OB population. We average several patients a day in our obstetric department that are COVID positive. The large majority of those women are going to do fine, okay, because that's a young population. With that being said, we've had a number of IUFDs, that stands for intrauterine fetal demise. These are pregnant ladies with otherwise healthy pregnancies, and their babies look fine, and those ladies come in, they're positive for COVID, they are sick, and they miscarry. That's not talked about anywhere. We don't have great data on that right now. This is strictly observational. This is an anecdote. This is what I see. This is what the obstetricians see. Every single one of those that we've had, those patients have not been vaccinated. The beautiful thing about the vaccine is that it creates an antibody response, and one of those antibodies is IgG. IgG has the luxury of being able to cross over the placenta. So the mom gets vaccinated, guess what? The baby is going to get those antibodies as well because they're going to cross the placenta, and so you have a baby that's born with antibodies to COVID. We don't vaccinate kids under the age of 12. So there's some utility in the way that the body works from that perspective. Other things that we see, I live in the surgical world, right? A number of our patients on any given day that were having surgeries, whether that's spine surgery, knee replacement, planning to have heart surgery, whatever the case may be, those individuals would need to come to the hospital, they would have their surgery, they would get admitted to the ICU or to the floor, whatever the case may be. Guess what? We can't do that. We've had to cancel those procedures until we get some bed availability, both in our critical care unit and our floor, and that we have the staff able to take care of those people. So, the impacts that we're seeing extend well beyond our patients that are there sick with COVID. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of patients are angry about that, and they voiced that to us. Doc, I did everything I was supposed to do. I followed the rules, wore my mask, I stayed away from people, I had my vaccine, and yet you're telling me I can't come to the hospital and get something I've been planning on doing for months because we have this large impact, 90% of which are individuals that are not vaccinated. And I'm not here to scare anybody into getting the vaccine. I'm just here to tell you what the numbers say. It's my job to read the data and to utilize that data to make informed decisions and to tell those patients and my friends and my family what I think the best information is. And unfortunately, it's a fluid situation. The information that we had at the very beginning, guess what? Some of that was wrong. Some of the information was wrong that we did at the beginning, and we're doing it differently now. And that lends itself to the public, having some mistrust in the healthcare system. And every time I've been on, Martin Shore, whatever it was, to talk about it, I talk about the fluidity of the situation. And as things change, the data changes, we change our stance on things. We're better at treating it now. But unfortunately, with the Delta variant, it's so much more transmittable patient to patient that we see a much higher influx than we've seen in the past. A lot of the concerns are about, we don't have FDA approval for the vaccine yet. It's under emergency utilization authorization, EUA. Well, guess what? When you come to the hospital, every one of those drugs we give you is under the same thing. So the people that are scared about the vaccine, that in turn develop COVID, and they want to come in and get an infusion of monoclonal antibodies, Regeneron is the one we utilize at the hospital, guess what? Not FDA approved. the data on it's okay. It may keep a few people out of the hospital. Others won't stay out of the hospital. They'll still be there. So everything we do at this point in time is utilizing non-FDA approved technologies for these individuals. With that being said, our mortality is lower right now than it was at the beginning because we're better at treating the disease processes. We know the right ways to approach things. We're not as aggressive utilizing our invasive ventilation techniques. So we're better at it, but we're overwhelmed as far as the volumes are concerned. But I'd be happy to entertain any questions you guys may have about any of the topics with COVID.
Mr. Hardy?
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Terrebonne General. I have a few questions and statements, really, sure. Because we have the public, hopefully we have the public's eye and the ear and their attention. I've been around the block, so to speak, and there's people that take legal drugs and illegal drugs. And my thought about the immune system, even with the legal drugs and the illegal drugs and the people that are not taking the vaccine. And I'm going to lead you into another thing. Okay. The underlying conditions of those people that are out there are not taking care of themselves and that are not vaccinated. And you did mention a plus and really a way of going around with pregnant people. And other people I've known to go to Terrebonne General or other facilities. Well, I stayed in there all day, I stayed in there all day. But then there's the ABCs in the medical profession, and therefore when the people with COVID and they have the low oxygen level, they actually are moved to the head of the line for those people that have a broken leg or need surgery for this, that, and the other. So back to you, Mr. Adams.
Yeah, exactly. It's a situation where we're going to triage the individuals that are coming into the hospital. We're going to take the individuals that are sickest with the most life-threatening condition, and we're going to try to take care of those individuals first. And that's how we've done things historically. And I'll make a statement based on some of the data out of Europe. This is not what we're doing now at Terrebonne General, but it's always one of our concerns. At a point at which your healthcare system becomes saturated, triaging individuals based on severity of illness may not be the best approach to what we do. The reality is, if we look at northern Italy during the first phase, they started that way, and they overwhelmed their healthcare system. And so what they had to do at that point was look at survivability. And that's a bad place to be. None of us are set here to play God to determine who lives or dies. And the beauty of the American healthcare system is we take you as you come. But once our resources are depleted to zero, if I've got a 95-year-old patient that comes in and needs to be on a ventilator, and I've got a 25-year-old patient that needs to be on a ventilator with no comorbidities, and I've got one ventilator, right? What's the choice that occurs there? Now, we don't want to make that choice, and we're not in the position to do that. But as you've said, these are the things that we look at. There's some emergency medical acts that exist to help with the ethical problems that exist in that particular scenario. And once again, we're not there now. But it crosses my mind that as the severity of the pandemic for this phase continues to worsen, do we end up in that situation? And I'm not saying that to scare anybody. That's a legitimate thought that goes through my head from time to time. Yeah. Anybody else?
Mr. Darren Guidry?
A question I have is, are you guys coordinating with Chabert Medical Center? And if somebody is in need or something, they have a space, or what is the situation at Chabert? Do you know?
They are also maxed out on what they can handle from a COVID perspective. I believe their critical care unit is only 6 beds. Is that accurate? Yeah. And so right now, every hospital is pretty much handling everything they can handle on their own. The ability for us to handle a transfer in for similar illness is pretty much non-existent. Our ability to transfer to a higher level of care at a university setting is almost non-existent as well. You may get lucky and make a phone call and something has happened in that 10 minutes before you call that they can take a patient, but that is exceedingly rare. Yeah. I'm going to let Dr. Mckee speak, and then any other questions that you can address to any of us we'll be fine.
Well, one thing before Dr. McKee speaks, I just want to thank you, Dr. McKee. I want to thank Phyllis for coming and doing this. I know, this is not something you get paid to do, but it is unbelievably important. And I've been texting people as you're talking, saying, are you watching this meeting? Go tune into it, go watch it, because I know of people who need to hear this message. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hello, my name's Dr. Nicole Mckee. I'm a board-certified family physician. I've been in practice for about 20 years now. In my role at Terrebonne General, I am the medical director of quality and integration, so I really work a lot on our quality programs. I've been very involved in kind of looking at how we handle this and how we handle it on a global level. So just to add a little bit additional information, this has a big impact on our overall healthcare system, not just in Houma, but statewide. And Dr. Adams touched on that, is that when we have patients who come in for things that are not COVID, we are severely limited in how that we can treat them. If you look at a patient who comes to our hospital who has something like a subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is a bleed within the brain, there are not a lot of resources in Houma to take care of that. We do not have a big neurosurgery department. The other hospitals around the state are just as flooded as we are. So in that situation, we can't get a hospital at a higher level of care in New Orleans or Baton Rouge or Lafayette to take those patients. So we are now having to take care of all those patients without the resources that we need. So we feel like as a state, we're going to have to really step up, because if you compare us to some of the other states, we are really falling behind. And it appears to be that a lot of it is related to our vaccination rates. If you compare us to a state like Massachusetts that has a really high vaccination rate, their hospital rates are much lower. Their death rates are much lower. Now, are patients getting COVID there? Yes, they are, and they're getting a lot of it. But it's just not as severe. Those patients are not utilizing all the resources in the community and in the hospital. And so that's why we're so impassioned about the vaccine, because it really has proven to be safe and effective. It's now been out almost a year, if you look back when the study started. And if you compare the states that are highly vaccinated, they are by far doing better. And so we just want to get that word out. And we want people to realize that even if you had COVID, being vaccinated is still very, very important, because newest literature that's coming out shows that the immune response for a person who's had COVID and then has the vaccine is dramatically better than somebody who has just had COVID. And so we just need to make sure that everybody is getting the appropriate information, the correct information, and that a lot of the myths and concerns are being debunked appropriately. We really care about this community, and we really want our patients to be able to be taken care of in a timely fashion, and right now that's not always happening. We look at our ER volumes, which in the summer is typically 100, maybe 120 patients a day. In the winter, we typically are more in the 150s. We're exceeding 200 patient visits a day. And then if you look at, how many people come to the ER and then leave without being seen, our rates right now are very, very high because the time to wait is a long time. And so those people who come to the ER and then leave without getting care, we don't even know what they were there for. Was it somebody who might have just been having a little bit of chest pain and was like, well, I'm not going to wait 12 hours, I'm just going to go home. That patient later has a heart attack, and we didn't get an opportunity to impact them. And so that's why we feel this is so important, that we get the message out and that we continue to talk about it and continue to answer questions when they come up. And so with that, I'll let Phyllis finish out with some remarks, and then we'll be happy to answer questions.
Well, on that light note, and we're going to go on HTV. We always do. We're going to get, as you can see, Dr. Adams and Dr. McKee are passionate about what we do. We're living and breathing it. But we'll take any questions, anything you want to ask, and we can call them up or whatever I can do.
Mr. Trosclair?
Yes, I want to thank you all also for coming. It's very informative. And Phyllis, I really don't have a question, but I got a statement to make. I'm sure y'all see me walk out my phone several times since we started the meeting. At 3:30 this afternoon, I made a 911 call to Acadia to pick up my mother. My mother was a lung cancer patient. She has one lung. She was having trouble breathing. Now, she's been vaccinated. You know, when they first, I guess in January, she got vaccinated. Katie picked her up. They were prompt. They got there, picked her up. Just in the last few minutes, they were finally able to get her into her room. This has been since 3 o'clock this afternoon. She's been basically in the hall in the gurney trying to get triaged and get set in the room. So that's the kind of thing. She got the COVID test. She tested negative. So she doesn't have COVID, but she can't breathe. Okay? So she needs somebody to take care of her. And it took what would normally take at the most an hour to get processed through the hospital, through ER. You know, here it is, 7 o'clock, and she's just getting taken in. She is in a room. Fortunately, they had a room to put her in.
Is she in a, I'm sorry, can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Is she in an ER room or in a room on the floor? Because we call that different.
Right.
And if she got from being in the ER to a room on the floor, I have to say congratulations.
I don't know. All I can tell you.
But she should have gotten in a room to be cared for. But to your point, we're working out of 8 rooms.
Exactly.
8.
And normally, you know, normal conditions, I wouldn't be at this meeting, but because I can't be with my mother anyway,
Nope.
I came to the meeting. Okay? So that's the things that, you know, the general public needs to really see. You know, I experienced it firsthand. I'm going to tell you, I'll be straight up honest with everybody. I had reservations about the vaccinations, about getting vaccinated. I had COVID. I actually caught COVID. And it wasn't, I mean, it affected me, but it wasn't detrimental. I didn't go even see a doctor. I just know I had it. But I've since changed my thought process, seeing what's happening now. I actually started my vaccination process. I've got one done. I got another one to do. But at the end of the day, you know, seeing this today really enlightened me to what's actually happening. I mean, I read news articles, I listen to news, I hear the statistics, and I believe 90% of it. And I know the hospitals are full. My daughter-in-law is a nurse practitioner. 2 of my granddaughters work at doctor's offices, so my sister works at a doctor's office. So, I mean, I'm intimately familiar with what's going on in the medical field with this COVID. So, but today it really hits home when, you know, I can get an ambulance to my house and pick up my mother and bring her to the hospital quicker. I can get her from the hospital out the ambulance into a room to be treated. You know, that's kind of scary. And she doesn't have COVID. So, I mean, COVID's causing this problem for her.
If I might, just to kind of add to that, just for what we see and what we wish we didn't, is that we have to ratchet down visiting. Because remember, we have a very vulnerable population of people who are sick. And so we cannot have a lot of visitors. To your point, we'll allow 1 visitor with somebody who doesn't have COVID.
And my sister's with my mother.
But if your family member has COVID, you may not come in because you will get it or you will transfer it or transmit it or whatever, and that's hard. And to your point, as your mom, you know, last August at this time, just as a little brief, I got the opportunity to be on the other side of the bed too, is that my mom got ill. But she was strong. The vaccine wasn't out. My husband got COVID and stayed 5 days in the hospital, and he's diabetic and had quite a little bit of a challenged time. My mom got it, no commitment. Dr. Adams himself said, we're going to intubate her. It'll be a day or 2. We're going to be good. My mom passed away. Not one of my family members could go stay with her. Only because I worked there was I able to at least say, I need to take her off the vent now after a challenge. But none of my siblings could be with her. None.
So once again, thank y'all very much, and I
hard.
appreciate what y'all doing.
It is hard, and that's what we deal with. And so we're just pleading to say, if you don't know, please carry the message. Dear goodness, help us carry the message.
Can I make one?
Yes.
This is just one thing that I was thinking about. You know, this is a large scale numbers problem, right? How many? I don't know how many citizens we have in Terrebonne Parish. What's our 115,000? All right, let's assume we have 1% of those individuals get sick. All right, we're down to 1,100 and change. All right. Of those, let's suppose half need critical care services, which is probably pretty accurate for what we're looking at. We can't handle 550 critically ill patients at our hospital. And so, like you, I had COVID myself. I had it in November. It wasn't the end of the world for me. I'm fairly young, not as young as I was, but it wasn't a terrible course for me. But I went ahead and got vaccinated because the data that we started to see out of Europe, specifically Israel, showed us that our immune response to the vaccine on top of naturally acquired immunity is about a 20-fold increase over the individuals that just have natural immunity, and it carries better coverage for these other variants that we're seeing that are coming out. So to your point, plenty of people get sick, no big deal, but that small percentage is more than enough to overwhelm the healthcare system and impact people like your mother who are not COVID patients.
Mr. Amady?
Mr. Chair, Dr. Adams, stay up at the mic because my question's for you. Absolutely. You had alluded to the treatment protocols earlier and how they've been changing. Are y'all finding that the protocols are narrowing into a certain few different things based upon what the patient's experiencing?
So I'll go back to the beginning and how we approach patients early, and I'll show you the changes that we had. Very early on, we thought we had the luxury of seeing what was happening in Europe and tailoring our response to our patients based on that information. The early data said we do not use anti-inflammatories. We do not use steroids. Individuals that require high-flow oxygen by nasal cannula, once they get to 6 liters, those individuals are going to crash. You should just go ahead and put them on the ventilator from the jump, breathing tube in on the ventilator. They didn't recommend utilizing BiPAP or other high-flow oxygen techniques that are non-invasive, meaning they don't require a breathing tube, because the thought was we're going to aerosolize these particles, we're going to expose our healthcare workers, and we're going to have more people out that are sick and less to take care of our patients. So what did we do? We followed what those recommendations were very early on. We put more patients on the ventilator then than we do now, percentage-wise. We also were grasping at straws for medications to administer to these individuals to slow down the immune response. Because in a lot of these individuals, it's not that the COVID infection itself is doing the damage, but it's setting a cascade up for a massive immune response. That results in many things. We run fever, we vasodilate, we have white cells going crazy. We have all these various mediators that live within our immune system that cause problems. And so we tried to figure out what medications can we administer to stop some of these processes. But hey, we can't use steroids or anti-inflammatories because based on the data out of Europe early on, that's bad, worse outcomes. Well, lo and behold, guess what? Guess what we're using now? We're using steroids. And the individuals that show up at the hospital with low oxygen saturations, we use steroids. Remdesivir is a medication that came out. It was spoken on television, but the data is not perfect there either. When the original study came out, I read it the day that it came out at a basketball game for Vanderbilt High School. My wife said, "What are you doing? You're not watching the game." I said, "I'm reading. I need to see what this stuff says." And to be honest, it didn't meet its p-values or statistical significance in some of its endpoints, meaning that, hey, it looks like it's pretty good, but it doesn't meet the standards that we set forth in this particular study. Anybody that's a scientist, physician, what have you, whenever we read medical literature, when we see those studies, it's our job to punch holes in that data. I read it with a skeptical eye every single time. It doesn't matter what it's about. It's my job to figure out where the flaws are, what are the weaknesses in the study, and I don't ever assume that the information that's put forth is 100% accurate. And so I read the thing top to bottom, and basically, there's about a 6% chance that the data that came out on remdesivir is just by sheer chance. Now, there's a 94% chance that remdesivir works good and decreases the mortality and the hospital length of stay. There have since been studies that have followed up on that are very much up in the air. But it was the first thing that we had that came out, aside from the utilization of steroids, that showed us, hey, there's some benefit here. Another medication that we use is an IL-6 inhibitor. That's an interleukin-6 inhibitor. That's one of the evil humors in our immune system that causes the immune system to go a little bit crazy. So we can interrupt that system by using the IL-6 inhibitor. And to be honest, I don't remember the name of the medication right off the top of my head. Dr. Mckee, maybe, which one?
Barry, B-A-R-I.
Yeah, Barry something that ends with an AB on the end. We call them all by these short abbreviations because there's several medications in that class. So the changes. Less people on the ventilator. Aggressive use of steroids when appropriate. That's patients in the hospital. I read I see the same junk on Facebook that everybody else sees. And sometimes the information that's spewed there may come from somebody with credentials, and that's using anecdotes to tout the truth. And the reality is, anecdotes are simply that. Anecdotes. It's things that we see by our eye, but that have not been well studied. Utilization of steroids in the outpatient population has not shown any benefit. Do I see plenty of people prescribing a Medrol dose pack when somebody shows up with a positive COVID test? I do. What it does is it increases viral shedding in those individuals and actually depresses the immune system during the early phase. So it's not to be utilized until we have individuals with lung disease and low oxygen saturations that come into the hospital. So utilization of steroids, utilization of remdesivir, IL-6, non-invasive ventilation. Those are all things that we didn't use at the beginning that we do utilize now. And listen, I don't treat patients on the floor. When I see them, they're critically ill, all right? That's my internal medicine colleagues, my pulmonologists, critical care folks. They do this every single day. There may be something I'm leaving out, but I think that's the gist of the things that we utilize at this point. And then on an outpatient basis, I made a mention to Regeneron earlier. That's a combination of 2 monoclonal antibodies. Those are synthetic antibodies that are designed to fight the COVID infection, the coronavirus. We have patients that they can come in and get those infusions. Those are outpatients. They're not sick enough to be in the hospital yet. Those are individuals that carry a higher than normal risk for getting admitted to the hospital, all right? It's pretty wide open, all right? That's elevated BMI, obesity, and I think they went down to a BMI of 25, which doesn't actually qualify as obesity, but hey, we're trying to get it in as many people as possible. You got asthma, you got diabetes, you're a cigarette smoker. It used to have an age restriction, and now they've opened it up to any age, essentially. The data there, it's okay, right? We said, how many of these patients would we expect to go into the hospital? How many of these patients didn't go to the hospital based on these particular infusions? Well, it's kind of hard to design a study that you're, trying to determine what would happen in the future, because we don't have a direct event, and there's no great way to study that. So it looks like it reduces admissions, and we go down that pathway, and you can talk to different patients that have had it, and some say I felt great a day later, some will tell you they felt terrible for a couple of days. And then the question is, how many of those people would have went to the hospital anyhow versus how many would have recovered? Because as I said, the large majority of people are going to recover and not wind up in the hospital. So you're dealing on small numbers. But that's another option that we have as an outpatient treatment. But as far as good peer-reviewed data looking at the utilization of antibiotics, ivermectin, colchicine, Plaquenil, we don't have any great information on that.
Well, you're still in the heat of it.
That's right.
So, I mean, it takes that time. But I really appreciate, Dr. Adams, the way you think. I think we go a whole long way if everybody thought the same way, where you don't just believe, because like you were saying, there's a lot of things thrown out there. You don't just believe the first thing that you hear. Absolutely. And run with it. And I always tell people, look, if you're concerned, then sit with your doctor. He knows you best.
That's right.
And voice it out with him. So I appreciate all that you guys are doing at Terrebonne General, Ms. Phyllis and Dr. McKee and the whole staff. I know it's a daunting task. And I've just seen, I had a friend recently that had Addison's disease and diabetic and a whole laundry list of ailments. And a year ago, she would have died. But now she's out.
Right.
And
yeah, survival rates.
So the treatments are kind of narrowing down now, and it seems like starting to have some effect. And I didn't want to discount anybody on the vaccinations, but I just had that question to see where we're kind of headed with that, because I know over time even the vaccinations narrow things down. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Mr. Davey?
Yes, I don't usually do things like this, is what I'm about to say, but I want to thank Ms. Phyllis Peoples and the staff at the hospital, Terrebonne General. Maybe about a month and a half ago, I was having some complications. I've been having some complications with different things. Went to the hospital right after, I think I was still in school during that time at Ellender. Me and my wife left work, went to the hospital. I think about a couple of months ago. And actually, we ended up waiting about 5 or 6 hours, okay, because we had a lot of patients coming in dealing with COVID then, okay? And it was, and I was in extreme pain, I really was. but I understood the situation that was going on. And just like you're saying how the hospitalization and all the things that's going on hindered the process of other patients, I can feel that. Because after I got in the emergency room, they ran tests and all that kind of stuff. They did another EKG, and they thought I had a heart attack, and they admitted me in the hospital. But the thing about it was your staff. I can't remember the young lady's name, but she let me use her charger to charge my phone. But she was very pleasant in making my spirit feel good in the hospital after I had been in all that time. And that's what the thing is, what you say, how the COVID patient hindered the other aspects of the patient that have other needs. And, and just talking to the young lady, she asked me, Mr. Navy, what you do? I told her, I said, I'm a guidance counselor elder. And she just constantly talked. And that's the good thing about people when you're dealing in the hospitals. When you have people like yourself, Dr. Adams, and you too, being a CEO, that's pleasant. But, what made me feel very good while I was in the hospital that night with her, she said, Mr. Navy, you got a good, humble spirit about yourself. See, that things like that matter when you're dealing in the healthcare system. And I appreciate you all caring about what you're doing. And look, it's definitely difficult, Dr. Adams, both of you all the doctors in here. I know it's difficult because you got to be around this situation constantly. You got families too, you got loved ones and things of that nature. But to be able to do this kind of work, and I call this is good charity way. That's what the Bible talks about in a spiritual way. You all being blessed, but this is good. So I have to say this tonight to you all. I really appreciate you all. I appreciate what you're doing in the hospital, and I think it's a wonderful thing. So, I don't talk much no more, but I just wanted to say that after being in the hospital that time with that. So thank you all, and thank you for what you all are doing for the people in this community. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Darren Guidry?
Yeah, and I know, some of the people watching may want to know, how they can get vaccines. I know Terrebonne General does vaccines through the Drive Up. So if somebody is watching and they want to contact Terrebonne General, how do they do that?
I'm gonna hand this one over to Ms. Peoples. I'll order them, but I'm not in the process itself.
Thanks, Dr. Adams. Hold on, Phyllis.
Is that we are giving vaccines and we do testing. We're moving our vaccines to almost 5 days a week. Many of you may have recognized we opened up a testing center. It's right across from our emergency room. Thank goodness in the last COVID situation. That has helped a lot out of our ER because when people come in just for tests, we can send them across the street and you can drive up, drive through. Now for testing, you have to have a doctor's order. For you getting the vaccine, you do not. So people can call 873-4686 and you can schedule those that you would be able to get through. Also, we're going to go on HTV tomorrow night. I asked Dr. Adams to join me. Hopefully he'll be able to with the cases that we have because he gives the medical foresight on that and we can pull him out a little bit as our other docs are swamped as you can. Not like he's not. I'm not going to minimize that. I just try and call upon them when I can. But we'll try and also put it up out there. But we're trying, we did have a Saturday vaccination this past Saturday. We also helped advertise the one at Dumas. We had over 75 to 80 people come through on Saturday. We're trying to do some after hours. We were doing it from like 9 to 4. We're going to try some after hours to catch people after work too. So as convenient as we can make it, we are trying to do that to help foster people who want to either get tested or have the vaccine.
But the vaccines that you have, they have to call and make an appointment, correct?
They can, and this is why, just so you understand, we don't say you have to, but we recommend you do. And what people don't realize is we give Pfizer. And Pfizer is a very good vaccine. It is a 2-dose vaccine. Pfizer has to be constituted by a registered pharmacist. It follows policy and process. We have all of that available in our organization. So when you call, the vials hold 6 doses. So you don't waste any. If I just had it as needed, then I'd have it just sitting on the side and see if people drive through. So we tell you to call so that at least we know, okay, we know how many vials to have available to defrost. Because if we put them out and defrost them and people don't use them, I've wasted them. Because they have to be used within a certain allocated number of time once you go ahead and take a dose from it. So we prefer, if you're able to call, we try and get you right in, but it helps allocate the number of doses with minimal waste.
And is there an online option if
There is. You could go through MyChart. You can go through your MyChart account. If you've used the hospital and you have through Epic that we have, you have access in MyChart. You can go to that, and then you're able to see a schedule and put yourself down for your preferred time.
Thank you.
Mr. Michaud?
Thank you. You know, when this started a year ago, we were helpless. All we could do was social distance, wear masks, limit the number of closed businesses, limit the number of people that could go into other places. And we're not helpless now. And this is what's so frustrating to me, is that we're not helpless. If people, I don't get why people would choose not to get vaccinations. Everybody's got a right to be as stupid as they want to be. I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's a fact. And I realize they have that right, but it's so frustrating because I know two people very well in the last week who've died from this, who didn't have to die. It's as simple as that. And I know he said a couple of times, I'm not trying to scare people, but man, this is just ridiculous. I don't know what it takes to get people to make a responsible choice that's going to be responsible for themselves and for the people they encounter. And so we do have an opportunity here to improve the situation where we didn't have that a year ago. So I just implore people to really think about it and pray about it and try to make an educated decision. And I thank you all for everything y'all are doing. Y'all are incredible. To be in there in the middle of everything and offering support, and y'all are just incredible. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Mr. Harding?
Yes, Ms. Peoples. I appreciate Turbo General and you guys for the support and the role that you played this weekend. There were a number of agencies that got together, and I thought what we had was probably the best that Terrebonne Parish can offer to the people within the urban port of this town. And it really touched me to see that all of us are working together to try to get a message, not just a message, but then trying to get some assistance. Like Gerald said, we are offering it. It's here. This is a miracle. It's free. And we're trying to not scare you into it. We're giving you the facts. 1 and 1 is 2. One person takes the vaccine and another person takes the vaccine. Those numbers add up into herd immunity. We take those numbers and we actually try to get them to the people out there in our communities to understand that we all have a responsibility. We all are here within the EMS and the medical professions and here with consolidated government offering an opportunity that's out there. And we trying to get the message to the people that are out there. All of us, please take the vaccine. If you don't take the vaccine, try to get tested. Thank you.
Mr. Babin?
I won't be very long, but the central theme that I heard from the doctors here tonight, and also you, Ms. Peoples, is that the people who have had the vaccine that go into the hospital with COVID stand a much better chance than people who did not. I had this disease last March at the very beginning, and I know how I was fortunate enough not to have to go in the hospital. But Dr. Adams, I thought what you said was, from the beginning, you changed what you did because you learned more. But the one central theme is since January or December, when the vaccine was able to be given to people, those people are in much better shape than the ones that did not get it. You talk about going on HTV, and there's no disrespect intended. Have you all thought about going on the New Orleans stations as well to cover more people? HTV covers a certain amount. The Homer Courier covers a certain amount. We cover a certain amount here, but that's not the greater majority of the people. So if you could, and disseminating information is the best possible way we can eradicate this disease, in my opinion. But again, thank you all very much for what you do. And we all know this is fluid, but we know that a vaccine can cut down on that. So thank you very much.
If I might, Just to kind of let you know how much we work closely together, to your point, we are on the phone, if not every day, every other day, talking to other organizations we all champion, because again, our goal is to save people. So we have a hospital that's a little further and much smaller. I talked to her today, and their issue is they didn't have any ventilators, and they only have the capacity to take care of maybe 3 ICU patients, but they were out of vents. They only have 1. We sent 2 of our vents down there to help, recognizing that we could use maybe something else, some vapotherm or some other things. We ended up getting one of the patients back who are currently in our ICU. Today they called and said, I recognize that it's harder and harder to transfer patients. Do you mind, because I think HOMA doesn't recognize, and I say, or the region, because there's no, I mean, Thibodeau, Chabert, St. Anne, us, New Orleans, we're all practicing the same and have amazing people who are dedicated. But they said, would your docs mind to have a Q&A with my docs so they know how to manage the patient until they could get to a bigger facility? Because you're seeing so much more of it. And we have intensivists that just work in intensive care. We have specialists. We have hospitalists, pulmonologists. We have a lot of things here that just are doing COVID that we have given it to a fine-tuned art. So they're asking our expertise like we used to ask at the beginning for somebody else, and that's a good feeling. And of course our docs immediately said, absolutely. We'll do a Zoom, we'll talk to other docs, we'll have a Q&A. So we talk all the time, and as far as New Orleans, you could talk to LCMC, Oshner, all of them are on all the time, and I would invite our audience and yourselves, look at what's going on in Lafayette, look at what's going on in Hammond, look at what's going on in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. There are no beds, there are no staff. Where we have 35 people, they have 152 staff out with 100 open nursing positions. They're treating people in the parking lots. They are not able to have enough drugs or IV tubings. They are further along than we are in our area and our region. We started only about 9 days ago of seeing this major thing, and we started, maybe it was a little further, 26 patients. As of today, 9 days later, we're at 56, 58 patients. It is compounding so fast. So we anticipate for our tsunami to happen, and that's why we're here, because school's starting. You will see now more gatherings or people, and then we're going to start to see a little more, I guess, cases or people, because you're interacting. And we're not going to take up the fight of vaxxers versus non-vaxxers, the politics or not. We're here to treat you. We just say if you can take something that helps you stay out the hospital, please do, because it will make you better. It will keep you prevented. But we talk all the time in those venues. We have governor's calls every Tuesday. And when you hear throughout the state how they're managing, they have already shut down all of their surgeries. They've turned their recovery rooms, their cath labs, and other things into COVID units or other ICUs. And they don't have enough drugs and they don't have enough staff. We anticipate getting to hopefully not, but we're prepared for that kind of crazy. Again, we'll be back here to say, oh my goodness, please help us get words out. So we do talk a lot. Watch the news now maybe with a clear eye, and you'll hear all that too. We just happen to be in the thick of it. So.
And again, I know you, I have lunch with Mike Fauquet probably 3 days a week, okay, and a board member for the hospital and others. What I meant was that you are the face of Terrebonne General Hospital, okay? If I'm watching the news and I see a doctor from New Orleans on there, I'm going to listen to him. But if I hear Dr. Adams or Dr. McKee or Phyllis Peoples on television, I'm going to be more aware of it. So all I'm saying is the people of Terrebonne Parish, when they're watching 4, 6, or 8, if Phyllis Peoples is on there, if you have the time, then you're talking about vaccines and you're getting to more people in Terrebonne Parish.
Absolutely.
And that's what I meant, because I know you guys do a great job. Thank you.
And from the chair, I'd like to thank all of y'all for coming over here, Ms. Peoples, Dr. Adams, Dr. McKee. Y'all give a lot of insight to everybody. Y'all have answered a lot of questions. This is a bad disease. It's killing a lot of people. It's killed one of my friends, 42 years old, died, very healthy guy, died last week. I talked to him about 4 or 5 days later. 5 days later, he's dead, you know what I mean? So, I mean, this is something that's killing people. But, you know, I run restaurants, but I got a lot of young kids work for me. these kids are dead set against getting these vaccinations, you know. And I go in there and I pound it into their heads every day. And it seems not to affect them one bit, you know. So I just don't know how we can get to this younger generation to be able to go out and get the vaccine, because I'm telling you, it's every day. I bump it in their head every day. And, you know, I got the vaccine, but I think everybody in this world has the right to get the vaccine or not to get the vaccine. But the smart thing to do is to get the vaccine. And I try to get it to these people, but they're just not listening. I just don't think they're 22, 23, 25 years old. They're invincible, you know. And I just don't know what it would take to get these young kids to open up and say, you know, wow, this can happen to me, you know. So, but with all y'all said to everybody, you know, and I appreciate y'all coming. I talked to Mr. Hughes this morning about y'all coming. And look, whenever y'all want to come back here and give any more kind of information, we greatly appreciate it. So thank y'all a lot.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the length of time, but thank you for giving us that opportunity.
No.
Thank you.
Thank y'all, Phyllis and Doctor. Appreciate y'all information. I'm gonna be very quick, guys. Positive cases today, 14,402. That's an increase of 2,309 from your last council meeting. That's averaging about 165 cases a day. Okay. Number of tests, 162,324. The difference from the last council meeting was 11,657 tests. We're averaging about 833 tests a day here in Terrebonne Parish. The positivity right now is at 18.8%. Last week it was 14.6%. You know, that's an increase of 4.2%. 2 weeks ago when I was at the council meeting, it was at 12.4%. So just from the last council meeting 2 weeks ago, we went up 6.4%. I mean, that's just astronomical. Okay, and the numbers show it. Deaths, we're right now at 224 deaths. The state's LDH website doesn't show that many, but I was with the coroner's office today. They're a little slow on getting, the state's a little slow on updating their site, but we had 224. That's 17 more deaths in the last 2 weeks. Okay, just in the last 2 weeks. Since July 25th, you know, we've had an increase. In August alone, since August 1st, I've had 12 deaths in Terrebonne Parish, just from the first week or two of August. Presumed recovered, right now I'm at 11,021. That means I got about 3,381 positive cases walking around Terrebonne Parish. If he doesn't think that's a lot, 2 weeks ago it was only 1,200 cases. So that just goes to show you how much more contagious this Delta variant is. Last week, number of cases just in Terrebonne was 1,168. 2 weeks ago, it was 830. 3 weeks ago, it's 432. So we can see the increase, how that's going. Once again, last week we had 12 deaths. 2 weeks ago, we had 3 deaths. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we had 2 deaths for a total of 17 more deaths here in the parish. I'm not going to go over all of these statistics because we've been up here all night, but there's been 347 more black cases of COVID. That's an increase of about 12.4% from the last council meeting. Whites, we've ended up with 969. That's another increase of about 11.8% in the white population. Other, we had 125, which is 9.87%. That's about a 10% increase. And unknown, we're at 487, which is about an increase of about 12.5%. So vaccinations, I will be glad to say that we have increased the number of vaccinations in the parish. You know, from the last council meeting, the number of doses administered is about 4,662. That's an increase of 11%. I'd like to see a lot more of that. I would like to see that doubled, but I'll take it, okay? Number of completed vaccinations, 1,016. That's only increased by 2.9% or 3%. Let me just tell you why it's like that. By the time you take your first dose, you got to wait 3 weeks to get your second dose from Moderna or Pfizer, okay? And then you really don't get full efficacy until 10 days after your last dose. 5 weeks. So if you take your vaccine today, you won't get full efficacy for 5 weeks. So it's important to go get it, okay, so that you don't wait too long because how long it takes to get your efficacy. So same thing with the state. The state administered an additional 223,700 doses from the last council meeting. That was an increase of 6%. What the good news was, when I reported at the last council meeting, there was a decrease of 33% of number of vaccinations between the two council periods. So we are getting the vaccine out. The completed doses in the state is up 2.8%. Like, once again, the reason that number is low is because how long it takes to get that second dose. Sad to say, Terrebonne Parish ranks last in the region as far as the percent of people vaccinated. We're at 30.34%. Okay, the largest in the region right now is St. Charles Parish, is 4.6%. Now, what I'd like to show you guys, what you can see on the screen, I know you can't see it too well, but this is the number of the percent of people that are vaccinated in certain tracts in the parish. And I know it's very hard to see, but what I want to do is we're going to go through just some of these numbers. Okay, the largest. We're on percent vaccinations. Is that correct, Ashley? Okay. So the largest percentage of vaccinations in the parish is in the census tract of 0300. Okay. The population in that tract is 5,132 people. 23.6% of that tract is vaccinated. So once that's Ashley, that's a 0300.
There we go.
Are you there? Can you see? Okay. Okay, so she's gonna get on that track. Is that the 0300, Ashley? Yes. Okay, that particular tract is very small in the parish, but you got to remember its population is small. But that particular census tract has the highest percentage in the parish. Is 23.6% of the people in that little census tract is vaccinated. So I mean, we can go through all of these. That's the highest. The fifth highest is at 14.8%. That's census tract 1100. I don't know if she can get to that. And that's the other issue. The census tract doesn't match your districts, so it makes it a little difficult to see what your district looks like. Okay, but that particular tract is 14.8% vaccinated, but then it has a population of 3,723. So and it would take a lot of time to go through all of these census tracts. But what I'm going to try to do, guys, is get a way to get this information to you guys via email so that you can see what's going on in your area. Okay, and see exactly what's happening on the vaccination. Now, I will tell you this: the census tract that's along the 311 corridor, it has a very high number of people vaccinated, but you also have to remember the population in that corridor is very high also. So, but I'm going to try to get this information to you guys so y'all can review it, on paper. So that you can see what it's going to, because it's kind of confusing. And we also have the data to match the weekly cases, the number of cases that are in these 21 census tracts. And these are the same census tracts that the state looks at every week also. And that's where we're getting the data from the state. So I just want you guys to know that, we are looking at these numbers. We are trying to find areas where we need to do more vaccinations and where, where the greatest number of cases are. But it's very hard to match this up between census data and your district. You would have to kind of look at it yourselves on paper. And it'll take a little while to kind of go through all of that. So I'm gonna finish on that and take any questions that you may have.
Ms. Domingue?
Yeah, thanks, Earl. I had asked you to put together these numbers for us so that we could have a visual, and I would like to have that so that we can look and better see, especially if it's in our areas, if there's certain areas that we can maybe reach out to people or make some phone calls just to see if we can increase some vaccinations. And I would like to give a shout out to my colleague, Mr. Harding. He organized some vaccine events this weekend, and I'll let him share the numbers with you, but they went really, really well. And so I just think that Mr. Carl definitely did a great job of giving back to his community and letting people know that it's very important to vaccinate. And so you can see his passion whenever it comes to those events. So I want to thank Mr. Harding for that. So thank you.
Mr. Guidry?
Yeah, Ms. Hughes, there was some discussion in the region that if we needed extra hospital beds, some temporary hospitals could be put up. So is there any discussion more about whether that might be needed, or?
Well, at the present time, it's not needed in our area, but they are putting up temporary treatment facilities in Baton Rouge and New Orleans because they are at the point to where there's just no beds available. There's no beds available in our region. Okay. The other day there was 2 ICU beds in our whole region. 2. Okay. A car accident of 4, 2 people get left out. Okay. The ventilator issue is such an issue right now. Our office does what needs to be done to help whoever needs help. We brought our office went and picked up ventilators at Chabert and brought them to Franklin. Okay. And we had to borrow the van from purchasing. But we're doing what we got to do to help everybody, and it's just the numbers are just unbelievable. Just today, 75 people in the hospital with COVID in Terrebonne Parish. 15 of those are in ICU, and 6 are on a ventilator. So I got these numbers at 8:30 this morning because that's when these change. Dr. Adams comes in and is so fluent. He said we now have 12 in ICU just in Terrebonne General and 7 on a ventilator. So those numbers have changed since this morning when I took these numbers. Lafourche is in the same issue. Lafourche Parish, between their 3 hospitals, 84 patients, 18 in ICU and 8 on a ventilator. And so we haven't seen these numbers since we started this COVID issue. And I do have some frustration. And if you go to the hospital and you talk to a medical healthcare professional, you will see the frustration in their eyes too. Because there is a vaccine available, and they keep telling you 90% of the people in the hospital are unvaccinated. 90%. Okay? That shows that the vaccine is working to keep people out of the hospital. So please go get a vaccine. I can't stress it more. I know we have a choice. Use your choice. Please kind of review your choice maybe every once in a while and see if you're still making the best choice for yourself. So with that.
I know you mentioned the 90%, but he said 0% of the people in ICU.
It was like that. I don't know if it's still like. Well, he said that.
He said there were all the people in ICU were non-vaccinated.
That's correct. Dr. Adams did say that today. Now that's one particular hospital. So right. But it's the numbers are telling you what's happening. Right
Thanks,
now.
Earl.
Mr. Bichot?
I don't know what good it would do to bring in more beds in Baton Rouge or anywhere else if they don't have the people to staff them.
That is correct. And the state is trying to get contract healthcare personnel into the state, but every other state's trying to do the same thing. So Dr. Cannon with the Department of Health mentioned that there's 3 things that's going on in nursing right now. Some nurses are taking what they call a sabbatical. They're leaving their jobs until this is over, okay? You have those that were close to retirement who says, I'm taking my retirement early. I'm getting out as early as I can. And then you have nurses that are leaving and going to find another profession. So it's the staffing is an issue. Phyllis could probably open up, another 20 ICU rooms. She don't have the staff for it. So we need the help of everybody to make a decision on getting vaccinated and to help the whole situation.
There's 2 things that are going to get us through this. One is vaccinations, and the other one is prayer. Thank you.
Mr. Hardy?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Jessica for the, at least the pat on the back, but then it's something that we thought, and we come up, and Jessica worked for the START program, and they were there from start to finish and gave out a lot of information. We were providing services for the people in the community. Earl and I started out, and Earl said, can you get these people? And we got the people together. But we only had one problem. We vaccinated 30 people out of 2 locations, 17 in one, 13 in the other. One is better than none. But I think the message is very, very clear. Everybody knows that. The message is very clear. And I appreciate your efforts, Earl. Everybody that was involved, radio stations, the Region 3, everybody, the representative, all the hospitals in Terrebonne Parish were involved in doing this. So we're making the efforts, but we're having a problem with the healthcare people. And, we're putting them under stress. I've been in a situation where stress and fatigue takes away your high level of professionalism. And so, we have to be mindful to pray for these people that are in the healthcare system. And there are some decisions that they have to make, whether to save the child or the mother that has 4 children, That's part of the triage, and they don't really deal with that too well, when you take for granted that all life is valuable. So I'm just saying from my heart to the people that are out there, hey, I love y'all, and do the best you can. Take care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take our whole community to get this to where it's not an issue here anymore.
Earl, thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for bringing everybody from Terrebonne General. Quite informative.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Item 2, authorizing the execution of change order number 1 balancing for PO number 219-2185 Bayou Country Sports Park Softball Sun Canopies Project, Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana. Move Mr. Babin.
Second.
Second by Ms. Domingue. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item 3, ratifying the appointment of the firm of Delta Coast Consultants, LLC, to provide engineering services for the Public Works North Campus Building Project and authorizing the execution of an agreement for these services. Move Mr. Michel, second by Mr. Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4, providing for ratification of the appointment by Parish President Gordon E. Dove to the firm of GIS Coastal Design and Engineering to provide engineering services for the Industrial Park Pump Station project, and also authorizing Parish President Gordon E. Dove to execute the appropriate engineering contract documents for this project. This item has been pulled by the request of administration. Item 5, introduce an ordinance to revoke parking meters located near 7839 Main Street and 7913 Main Street as designate both spaces as no parking zones, and calling a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Move Ms. Domingue, second by Mr. Harding. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Item 6, introduce an ordinance to establish a 3-way stop at the intersection of Scott Lane and Billy Street, and calling a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Moved by Mr. Harding, second by Ms. Domingue. All in favor? Motion carries. Item 7, introduce an ordinance to authorize the parish president to execute the necessary documents for the exchange of equally valued immovable property between Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government and Briar Patch Incorporated to facilitate construction of a HPD substation along East Street in Houma, Louisiana, to provide for related matters, and it's called a public hearing on said matter for Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Moved by Mr. Trosclair, second by Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Motion carries. Item 8, introduce an ordinance to name the courthouse square the Edward P. Bubba Lines Courthouse Square and to provide for related matters and calling a public hearing on said matter for Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Moved by Ms. Domingue, second by Mr. Harding. All in favor? Any nays? Motion carries. Item 9, introduce an ordinance to amend ordinance number 5349 to change the street name of Fairmont Avenue to Fairmont Drive in order to reflect the correct street name and call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Moved by Mr. Gerald Michel. And we have a second by Mr. Danny Babin. Mr. Michel?
Yeah, I just want to clarify something for the people in that neighborhood who might be watching. A week ago today, that's going to go to a public hearing this Wednesday, we talked about a four-way stop at McCoy and Kelly. And while we were doing research on that, looking at it, we saw that something was written incorrectly for this other non-related intersection. And so we're just correcting this with this, and so that's going to go to public hearing. So it has nothing to do with McCoy and Kelly. McCoy and Kelly is still coming to public hearing on Wednesday. Thank you.
All right. We got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item 10, introduce an ordinance to add armed protocol rules for informal hearings regarding the mandatory spay and neuter of impounded domestic animals and procedural rules for informal hearings regarding dangerous and/or vicious dogs to be conducted by the Terrebonne Parish Division of Animal Control, as well as amending certain provisions regarding the redemption of impounded animals, and call a public hearing on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. This item has been pulled by the request of administration. Item 11, discussion and possible action with regards to rescinding the condemnation order for 2626 Daniel Turner Trailer Court, Houma, Louisiana, owned by Daniel Turner. Moved by Mr. Harding.
Discussion.
He moved it.
No, it's a discussion.
Oh, okay. No, okay. Mr. Trosclair?
This is in Mr. Navy's district, and he asked me to take it. He had to leave. What he's asking for is for me to introduce a motion to hold any action on this property for 30 days because he's working with the owners of the property. It's saying to rescind the condemnation, but that's not what we're trying to do. He just wants to hold any action for 30 days. So I'm going to make a motion that we ask nuisance abatement to hold any action, do not take any action for 30 days on the condemnation order per Mr. Navy's request.
I got a motion by Mr. Trosclair, second by Mr. Harding. I'm going to you guys. Mr. Pulaski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this item, or this property at 2626 Daniel Turner Court was condemned, I believe, in the April hearings, and they had until August 5th to demolish the structure. They've started the demolition. They haven't completed it yet.
I'm
saying this for Jules too.
Yeah, Mr. Navy told me he's working with the people, and they're asked for 30 days before we actually contracted out to start the demolition. Okay, so that's my motion, just to hold any actions for 30 days. It's written down as rescinding the condemnation, but but that's not what he's asking to do.
So you're not asking to rescind the commendation, you're just asking the staff to hold off.
To hold off on taking any actions for 30
To
days.
hire a contractor to go
Right.
do it. Okay,
And-
that's fine.
All we've done to date is request for bid, put out an advertisement for requests for bids, but we haven't accepted any.
Right.
We
For
won't
30
accept.
days.
We won't move forward to schedule that demolition until after the 30 days
In other words, what he
extension.
can do is he can bid it, but tell the bid, whoever gets it, that it's held off for 30 days.
Right.
Correct.
Perfect.
All right, I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 12, discussion and possible action regarding rescinding the condemnation order on the residential structure located at 1115 Clay Street, Houma, Louisiana, owned by Geneva Smith Spencer, Rose Lee Spencer Harris, Lily Mae Spencer Celestine, Joe Spencer, Elijah Spencer Jr., Shirley Mae Spencer, Carolyn J. Spencer Theodore, Rachel Spencer Willis, Shannon L. Spencer, Brenda Joyce Spencer, and Shirley S. Nero. Mr. Trosclair.
Once again, Mr. Navy asked me to introduce the same motion on this property to hold back on any action taken. So my motion will read to ask nuisance abatement not to take any action for 30 days.
I got a motion by Mr. Trosclair, second by Mr. Harding. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Motion adjourned, Mr. Babin, second by Mr. Amadi. All in favor? Motion carries.
Man, I thought about you, Mike. I put something on Facebook. It was a song.